I met my ex-partner back in 2007. We met in a club, and you know, everything was fine for the first 2.5 years. I fell pregnant, and throughout my pregnancy he started to change, and he used to do little things. Like one time I went out with my friend, and when I'd come back, he didn't like the fact that I was out with her, and just out of the blue, just like that, he grabbed my shoulder blade and squeezed it with his hand around my throat, and he was like, "You've been out with that fucking whore, haven't you? I don't want you going out with her again." And it took me by complete and utter surprise. I was gobsmacked, you know, and I didn't know what to do, what to think. My initial reaction was get up, get dressed, get out, you know. So I got up. I didn't really speak to him because I was just in, you know, this disbelief of what had just happened. And he said to me, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going home." I was like, "You realise what you've just done to me?" He grabbed me by my throat and threw me on the bed, and he basically said, "You know, you're not going anywhere, you're staying here." And I was scared, and it was, you know, the first time it had happened. And then I just stayed, and in the morning he, you know, was full of the apologies. "I'm sorry, you know, I didn't mean for that to happen." I couldn't move my back where he'd pulled my shoulder blade so hard, and you know, I couldn't get dressed. He had to help me get dressed. And things just resumed as normal. I went home, relationship just carried on as if nothing had happened. And then a month before my daughter was due to be born, we moved into a flat together. It was the first time we'd lived with our partners, you know, so it was like a new experience for us. He used to work at the same place as me. 2 weeks before I was due to give birth, he lost his job. He smashed the till, and he got the sack for that. So he was out of a job. I was due to have a child. The strain was on. I was supporting him, myself, and you know, the preparation of the new baby. So I was stressed. He'd changed so much, and he'd stay at home and he'd play on his PlayStation and smoke weed, drink beer, and he wouldn't go and look for another job. I was about 8.5 months pregnant, and I'd come home. I'd been out with my sister and my nieces and my nephews, and I'd come home and I sat down on the sofa, and I have this thing where I cuddle up to cushions. It's like a comfort thing for me. And I remember cuddling up to this cushion, and these are like big cushions, and I could smell this woman's perfume on my cushion, and it sort of made me sit and think, that's not my perfume, that's nothing I have. And I said to him, "Who have you had round here?" And he said, "No one." And I was like, "And you've had somebody here, who, you know, who have you had here?" "Oh, just my friend Simeon," which was his best friend. And I just thought, alright, he's not going to tell me. I went to the kitchen and I saw lip gloss around a glass of the rim, and I that was just like the confirmation, the perfume, the lip gloss around the room. And I brought it into him. I was 8.5 months pregnant. I was hormonal, you know, everything was all over the place. And I remember saying to him, you know, what the hell have you done? What, you know, what is this? And he was like, oh, it was just my ex. She came round, we had a drink, so fucking what? What's your problem? And I just said, my problem is the fact that you never told me and you lied to me. He, from that, got really angry. I could never confront him about anything, and he'd always get really angry if I ever questioned something he'd said, and I weren't letting it go. He grabbed me by my throat, dragged me through the hall from the front room up to the front door and slammed me against the front door. I was 8.5 months pregnant. He said whatever he had to say to me and then walked off as if nothing, you know, he'd never just done anything. That was pretty much the start of it all rolling. The ball was going then. He realised that he put fear into me. He realised he had me in a vulnerable state, and it got worse. I remember one day I questioned him about why he hadn't been looking for a job. The baby was due any day. You know, you need to get a job. I need to go on maternity. I'm getting cut pay when I'm on maternity. You know, I need your help. He punched me in the stomach. He told me to shut the fuck up. I didn't know what I was fucking talking about. All of this stuff. Slammed all the doors in the house. Punched the walls. Put holes in the walls from punching them. And I'd just sit in the bedroom and I'd just sit and cry. And I thought, if I just stay out of his way, then it'll pass and he'll go back to playing his PlayStation and it'll pass. Then he got really dependent on skunk, and he went through £20 a day on skunk. He smoked an eighth a day. And he didn't have a job. He didn't have he wasn't on benefits. He wasn't getting job seekers allowance. I was on my maternity. I was getting 90% pay, and he was taking £20 a day of my money. I eventually got fed up of it because there was times I couldn't afford to buy myself things. I couldn't afford to buy the child things. And he would get aggressive because I'd said no to him having the money for his drugs. And there was loads of different things, and he was always very clever to not mark me. He'd always hurt me but not do it enough to leave anything behind. This went on for, you know, over a year, and one of the occasions I ended up phoning the police because my friend was round, and it was always over silly little things. There was juice in the fridge that he liked, and I was the one that bought everything, and my friend had had some of this juice, and when he come back he'd noticed that some of it was gone, and he went absolutely ape. I knew to save myself embarrassment I had to get out of the flat, and I said to my friend, right, let's go, let's just get out of here, let's take the baby somewhere. Mia was about 4 months old, something like that, and her daughter was 6 months older than my daughter, so they were still babies. My friend had put hers in the car seat and she'd walked out the door, I had Mia in her car seat in my arms and her bag, and I went into the kitchen to grab her bottles. He followed me in the kitchen, shut the door behind me, grabbed me. I dropped Mia, and he held me over the cooker by my throat backwards, and he just say, you know, he just talked to me like a piece of dirt on his shoe. Like he just made me feel, you know, really bad about myself. And he knew he could do that because before he met me, you know, I had everything. I was 19. I'd just come back from New York. I had a good job. You know, I was a gym freak. I was there 5 hours a day, 5 hours a week, 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. I was there, you know. And when I had Mia, my body just completely changed, you know. And I was vulnerable about that because I always had this perfect body. And he knew that was one of the things that would get me. If he was to comment on, you know, like the weight gain, the change of my body, you know, how I don't have like the perfect stomach anymore. And he'd say those things to me to make me vulnerable. He knew what hurt me most, and he knew how to play on it. He, from there, my friend, back to the story, my friend could hear me screaming, and she couldn't get back in the flat. She'd been locked out by the front door. And he eventually let me go. And I remember just picking up Mia. I left her bottles, everything, and I ran. And I called the police because I felt I had to, because she was there, my friend was there, she witnessed it, and I couldn't be seen to be accepting it. I called the police. They came round. They arrested him, took him off because they have to. They released him next day without charge. Come back to the flat as if nothing had happened. They didn't have any evidence because nobody saw it. My friend only heard it. That for me was a bit of a blow, because now this man is in my life whether I liked it or not. But I just carried on, and he was still taking all my money. He was still, you know, just sitting on his ass, doing nothing, being abusive. He eventually, it was coming up to his birthday, and we'd had this little party for him back in September last year, like a barbecue, and we all was out playing poker and everything at the night. It was, you know, at the house. It was a good night. We all enjoyed ourselves. And then the next day, my mum had a mammogram appointment, and I wanted to go with her for obvious reason. He wanted to go and pick up his weed, and I wasn't available. I said, I'm sorry, I'm going with my mum. She's got a mammogram appointment. She's found a lump. And he didn't care. He was like, you can phone your mum and you can tell her you ain't going. I need to get my weed. I need my weed. Your mum can go to the hospital herself. She's a grown fucking woman. And that really upset me. And that, for me, was the final straw.